Dos. Uh,
Hello.
oh my
This
god.
guy can't even count down. Roll like.
Yeah. Anyways, hello everybody. Welcome to another podcast tonight with the four boys here. Oh man. Also, if you're wondering why Michael is hiding behind Victor,
He's a scared
what?
little boy.
Let's not ask any questions now.
God.
Back shots.
Come here. Excuse me. I don't want back shots.
Back
Come
shots.
over here. No. Ah.
God damn. Anyways, let's go ahead and for today's topic. Sorry, my mind is in two different places right now. Oopsies. But today's topic, we're going to talk about movies again, because you know what? Fuck it. I love films, and we're going to talk about movies, and y'all going to have to deal with it.
What movies are we going to talk about today?
Man, are we doing ASMR right now? Because I'll fucking do this shit too.
My ears.
Sorry for those that are listening in and have headphones. Or if you go onto YouTube, warning in advance too. Maybe turn down your volume just a tad. Or keep it.
After you done it, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll put the warning at this point.
Yeah, we'll put a warning somewhere, but probably never. But today's topic of movies too, it's pretty much like we're just going to be going back to a lot of the things that we have talked about in relation to like film, streaming, what we think is going to happen in the future of streaming and whatnot. So anyways, Michael, I'm going to put you back in form now. I don't need you to be behind Victor.
Oh, hello.
Yes, hello. But well, I'll probably do some editing tricks later, but well. So let's go ahead and dive into like what I really want to talk about with this. So I want to like at least ask you guys a question like all together too, which is in this case, when we talked about like when everything is a subscription, especially with like streaming subscriptions right now. And a lot of times too, a lot of these streaming services are becoming to consolidate each other and start to kind of look similarly again to like cable that we used to have back then. Do you think right now like it's just gonna become like a never-ending cycle of like we don't like paying for like a combined subscription package just because there are some shows that we don't care about, and then it's just gonna go back into an endless cycle?
Yes.
Just because streaming service was like an answer to like cable in the first place. But nowadays too, with all the other like Hollywood studios that are taking a lot of movies out from Netflix and they're putting it in their own shows or streaming services,
Yeah,
forcing us as consumers.
I agree. That is the big problem. I mean, like, we have a bunch of different shows on a bunch of different sites. You know, Amazon got some good shows that I was watching before. Netflix got like all the movies. You know, nowadays I'm using a different streaming site to watch K dramas. You know, like it's kind of, it's annoying.
Yeah. And it's not this like discredit too of like, let's just say for example, Netflix is like trying to branch out, trying to include like a lot more like international media into their streaming services. But it doesn't also help too when they tried doing that before too, like for whatever reasons, regular people couldn't just watch like Pokemon seasons like all in one sitting too, because like you would have like partial of a season and another half of that season being ended up somewhere else on like Crunchyroll.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, so that was like that's something that like at least right now this is the current like consumer nightmare when it comes to streaming.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're definitely spending a lot of money just to subscribe to different services to watch the one or two shows that you really wanted to watch.
Yeah, and I would say like what the only best qualities, at least like a subscription based for streaming that I've seen so far is like YouTube Plus, but that's only because like or YouTube Premium, but that's only because like they have like more than just like streaming other YouTube originals on there. There's just more things that they do offer, but so does like Amazon.
Where?
Oh, that was back in like 2016 when they were really trying to push for like the reason why you should get premium so that you can watch YouTube originals, which nobody really cared about that.
Bro, I didn't even know that existed.
They were
And I have YouTube Premium.
oh my god. But yeah, that was like pretty much how bad like when they were trying to do YouTube original shows. So there's her
That's like
answer
a
to
W
that.
for me.
Yeah. So that's why at least I want to ask you like now the other two here. Do you think right now that we're just gonna keep fighting we're trying to fight this endless cycle of like do we want to have like consolidated streaming services but it'll end up the same route as like cable, or do you think that like we're gonna need to break off again to like individualized streaming services, like pay for what you
Man,
want?
it's cyclical. You're always going to have it where something new comes out, and then as it gets popular, it starts to push the boundaries of what it can do to get money out of people, and then it becomes just like its predecessors, and then something else is going to come out, and it's going to keep that vicious cycle over and over.
Yeah, I think like, well, unless like Loy, you want anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's just a roundabout way. Cable, cable and streaming services. It's just it's just a solution. Like the streaming service was a solution to cable was like you're only paying for so much to watch certain shows. You can care less about it, but streaming service kind of the same way.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna keep on going back in a cycle and a cycle. Like that's just like the reality of it, pretty much.
Yeah.
Going back to Brian's point of breaking up the streaming services into potentially smaller sites, I guess. I don't think that'll be any better because then you
Yeah.
have even more subscriptions then.
Yeah, like there's literally no end to a lot of this problem too, and it's like it ends up being the fact that the user at the end of the day is going to be paying for a lot anyways. And I feel like the ultimate future would just be the fact that like again, nobody pays for streaming services anymore at all, and everything just collapses in on itself.
But
Like
people gotta watch their movies and stuff. So I don't know, man. I think the problem is that a lot of these big streaming sites are also making their own movies, which is what really is driving up costs of these subscriptions. Honestly, if they didn't make any of their original shows, they wouldn't be expensive.
yeah, but I think it's also because like why Netflix had to do that too, because like this was again like when all the other studios were like pulling their films out of like Netflix's catalogs just so that they could put it in their own streaming services, and therefore
Yeah,
Netflix needed to
no,
like had some way to like pad out their library.
no, this is the issue with competition, I guess.
it it's like I don't know. I think this goes like from our original point.
there's no good solution to this.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
because like
absolutely no good solution.
right, because it's like at the end of the day too, it's like I think in a lot of cases too, people don't necessarily care about monopolies unless a product is good. I think right now what's going on too is that like they realize that a lot of streaming services has like a lot of like power over to like what content is being made for like the filming stuff, for the filming side at
Mhm.
least. That at
Mhm.
some point too, the people themselves are not gonna really care about these projects because half the time it's like these movies aren't really necessarily made for at least for me or you or for anybody else really, so it's just like this is just them trying to pad out their pockets or pad out their catalogs to justify like price increases like what you said, and it gets into a vicious cycle which we'll get into like the whole like Hollywood industry that's effectively is what is like giving these streaming services the platform to actually be a product in the first place.
Mhm.
So and I will say at
Mm.
least say that like there is actually a really unique opportunity that might come through this too, where like I think Disney Plus and Netflix actually kind of have an advantage when it comes to this. And that's in this case the implementation or incorporation of a lot of multimedia or a lot of international media content on there, like a lot of K-pop drama or not K-pop, sorry, K-dramas. Oops.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a inclusion of a lot of K dramas that are being included in their catalog service. And it's already shown in like Netflix too that anything Korean related media is super popular.
Hmm.
Especially you look at like Netflix shows like Physical 100. That's my personal favorite show, despite all the controversies and rumors that were behind it. But hey, it's still my favorite show. But I don't know. I think that's the only like way out that these streaming services have to do right now is the fact that instead of like they can't keep a collection of their own like Western like films or media projects into their own catalog, they'll just start buying out or incorporating the distribution rights of other international uh, movies into their streaming services.
Mhm.
That is literally the only thing I could think about that could potentially like not really save them, but like keep them afloat long enough until there is an actual solution. Because outside of that too, even that won't last long until the fact that Korea says fuck you, we'll make our own streaming services.
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, of course they have their own streaming services. It's just
Yeah.
Americans are different. I think the thing is that it, like this, like y'all said before, is cyclical. But at the same time, it comes to a point where I guess we get saturated with all the movies and shows that are on these streaming sites that you know I don't see how adding more movies or combining with other streaming services are going to make it any better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's a fundamental issue with the whole streaming industry right now.
Mhm. And
And
what's
I
that?
think just like in any creative industry, you can only be creative so much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can only be creative so much too. But I think right now, at least this is something that at least I think me and Michael could probably talk a little bit in depth about it too. Where I think right now, a lot of films and a lot of industries too, because of how much money these streaming services are making too, a lot of like the newer movie and TV show projects, let's be honest, the amount of money or the budget that goes into these shows has been like exploding ever since. Like I will say like would you even say like 2010 was when we started seeing like a lot of like uh big budgeted films or like increasing budget on films is the trend here that Hollywood is like pushing for
Yeah, yeah,
because like
I would say so.
because I'll say this 2010 what happened during 2010 the Marvel movies and I feel like the way how a lot of studio execs really saw that too is the fact that like the movie had the biggest payout ever because of the fact that it also had a really big budget, but it made
Well,
over that. And
well, it
twice more.
also just had it was a very anticipated release because it was a consistent build up through the years.
Mhm. Now,
We can tell Victor is muted.
yep,
No, yeah.
but yeah, he's back now. So nowadays, this is also going to be another question I really want to ask you guys too. Is the fact that do you think right now with the pursuit of money, then does that in this case cloud up like in this case the actual like quality of the film, like does
Not
increasing the budget showcases to us like a lot of times the or the more budget meaning the better the film or I guess the better the return.
I don't necessarily believe that the chasing of money is what caused the quality to drop. Because I mean, while everyone is out there trying to get their creative like writing across, or their like photography or the videography skills out there, cinematography, if you will, um, they always did it and also hoped to make money on it. Like, I don't think that chasing money was ever something that ruined the quality. Well, that you would usually ruin the quality of a film. I think it's a change in mentality recently,
There's a change in ideals for sure. Yeah.
and I think we also have a very big lack of good writers because, like, I don't think a massive budget on a film at all, and I think no one believes this, is a guarantee on any return. but it always comes down to the writing and it comes down to the story. And if you look at even Marvel, some of the films that flopped so hard, they just weren't good writing. Like
True.
Captain Marvel, it had a massive budget, flopped so hard. A lot of the newer Marvels, like Eternals, I just heard it was boring. Probably, I think it had a big budget, flopped. I mean, like, it doesn't have to do with the budget. It has to do a lot with our current state of the writers are we just are accosted by, that we just have, that
Right.
just somehow found their way into the industry in one way or another.
Now, I would at least like say that like on top of that too, there are in this case a lot of good cases too where like the high budget actually did warranted like a lot of good sales, or in this case it was a good film overall too. Like for example, I think the biggest budget film of the MCU during like our recent years was Spider-Man No Way Home, but that was only because of the fact that like it brought back, like in this case, the crowd favorites, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man into the fold of this film. Sorry for those that haven't watched the film yet.
Watch it now, you're a little late.
Yeah, but it made up with a lot of money in the end too, because this is something that like a lot of times people love the Spider-Man films no matter what too. I'm gonna get into that a little bit as well as to why I think that might be the case of why Spider-Man films predominantly do really well as a standalone superhero film versus everything else, but that's later on. But I will even say too, the problem with the how I see it too is like in combination of bad writing, the whole Marvel Studios and effectively Hollywood in general is also abusing the shit out of their VFX like companies. Like there have been a lot of reports and a lot of like accounts of like VFX artists that had to leave the industry because either they were getting burnt out by a lot of deadlines, and a lot of times they're just not getting paid on time by these big studios. Despite the overall success of certain films, a lot of these VFX studios are just not getting paid. And
Yeah.
and it's also because of like the rush job too. You actually get to see what happens too, like when VFX like companies are put under crunch time as well. Look at the first ever shoot of Black Panther. I will always reference this as like a film that did, in writing terms, it did exceptionally well writing wise. But the VFX department flopped really hard because they had to do a reshoot of something. And it was a last minute like render change that they had to create a scene from scratch again within like 2 months of release.
What
That
scene
was
was it?
it was the ending scene. It was the ending scene with T'Challa versus the Killmonger in the in the cavern scene. Because if you would notice that scene too, it looked a little bit off on that. But that was also because when they also shot that scene too, the film or the scene itself was super dark. So they had to artificially like contrasted the brightness of the shot itself to make it look brighter. But now it just looks way off. And then
They
you
suffered
would
from
see,
Game of Thrones.
yes,
The
exactly.
Game of Thrones syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, if anything, I think that is primarily the biggest issue that we see right now. Why I think in this case, the increasing cost of like streaming prices is something that, like, I guess in a lot of us, we would expect it to if they're making these projects. But a lot of people are definitely getting upset about it too, because a lot of these projects are just trash. That is the biggest issue, really. It's like you can tell us that you spent so much money on like a franchise too, like for example, the Star Wars film, all the Star Wars stuff, amazing VFX and amazing like cinematography here and there too. But unfortunately, nobody gave a fuck about the story because it's just like, oh, who are these guys? Ultimately, that. And that is also a shameful part about all of this as well too. It's like they are really trying hard, and like what Michael said, trying to push for like other angles, other ways to like try to capture those audience, but definitely in the wrong way possible. And it's causing a lot of people to really reconsider a lot of times the streaming services just on the state at the which Hollywood is trying to produce those films. Because obviously streaming services hinges on the fact that Hollywood can actually make films.
Yeah.
So this is also why like I kind of want to see this as like, does in this case the pursuit of money, just because with streaming services having like all these big contracts with them streaming services, allowing like the Hollywood to rack in lots of money and income just from both the box office sale and streaming like rights and whatnot. But nowadays too, a lot less people are willing to like even go to box office sales too, and a lot more people are like ditching a lot of their subscriptions. Therefore, it's actually hurting Hollywood by a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
At least that's
It's
what
an
I
interesting
think.
problem. It's an interesting problem. I mean, like you say, people stop going to theaters and just watching it on streaming sites now.
Yeah.
And then now that people don't want to watch on like streaming sites anymore, where would they go? Where would they go to watch their movies? Do you think they'll go back to theaters?
I don't know. This is such a weird issue and problem too. But it doesn't matter anyways too, because you have like movie hits like Oppenheimer that did successful in theaters. So it's a lot more interesting too, because it's obvious in one regard here that everyone has in common. We love to see good movies. At the very end of the day, that's all we care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of times the people are really, in this case, against not anything that like in terms of messaging, that a lot of people are a lot of like nerds online that are saying too that like they're pushing so hard on the messaging and whatnot too. The messaging isn't the issue, in my opinion. It's the fact that the movie is shit. Like, let's be honest.
That's true. That's true.
Because here's my hot take on this one too. I think in most part too, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is still by far a really good Marvel film. But in this case, it also had like a lot of those like female lead protagonists that they were trying to push for and whatnot. But hey, guess what? I still liked it in the end. Because hey, this is something that again I will stay on a lot of things too. Marvel, in terms of MCU, Black Panther's the Black Panther and the Black Panther Wakanda Forever are by far two of my favorite films. Just because one is like the story of like T'Challa trying to become like the carrying the mantle leader of Black Panther, and Wakanda Forever is effectively like a what if, not even a what if scenario. It is the literal scenario like what happens when the king just passes like unexpectedly. How does the world recover from that? Especially the world being his closest family. Like, how do they deal with it? And it's a beautiful character story. And I really hope that people do try to see it that way too, versus like all like in this case, people are saying that there's so much political messaging on there. There's definitely a character that didn't need to be involved in this whatsoever. But overall, still my favorite to this day. Better than Shang-Chi.
I agree.
I will keep dissing that movie to the ends of the earth. It's still great. It's still a great film, but man, they killed the potential of that film, in my opinion.
Eternals was the worst movie ever in that phase.
I would still argue that like, okay, no, Eternals is only bad because of like a one important plot point that nobody talks about ever again. Towards the end of the movie, there's a giant statue that pokes out of Earth, of like an actual colossal titan like pushing out from it, and it stays like that now. And nobody at all the future iterations of Marvel talks about it.
Nope.
Yeah, so even like people agree too that the Eternals was not like the greatest thing that they could create. And like I said, the issue again is not in the way that like people think that it's like the political messaging or it's like all these like shitty like CGIs. I don't think it's just that too. I think it's literally just the fact the movies are bad. One example, I'll say this for example, in one of the case too. If we look at it in this case, the film's Pacific Rim. This is just me ranting at this point now, but Bear with me, everybody. But Pacific Rim, CGI wise, it looks phenomenal in that regard. But there's at least one reason why that is, and why Pacific Rim 2 Uprising looks like trash. Where in reality, both of those are actually created the same way. Like VFX wise, they are actually undergoing the same process as the first film. It's just that the second one looks worse than the original one. And that's because half the time, all the shots are taken at night or when it's really dark. Lighting plays such an important role, and I will stand by that ground. Why in this case? I think that's what's happening with a lot of films too. There's just a lack in this case of trying to make shots look decent or good overall. In this case, cinematography has gone down, not just writing. I think the all in general, like the filmmaking and the cinematography like process itself is just bad.
Yeah, because everything, has a deadline. Everything's rushed. So
Yeah.
wanna
Everything
get
is
this movie out as quickly as possible.
yeah. And it's not in this case like you need like the best like time of day shots either. No, I don't think it's just that too. I think really it's just like what you said, there's a deadline. There's not enough time to plan out like how each shot should look.
Mm-hmm. Of course, if you only want nice shots, you're only limited to night. And if you have a deadline, you have no time to really get a good shot. Then if you mess up,
Yeah. Whereas
that's the
Disney,
problem.
yeah, Disney though had a really good advantage on that too. They were using in this case literally like a film set technology, which is effectively just a bunch of OLED screens that surround like a set where the actors would be at, and it would just project the lighting that you would want onto the actor, and it would do it in like a 100% natural lighting possible, and you could do a lot of it like post editing to just adjust it. Henceforth, like the Mandalorian, for example. Why do you think in Mandalorian season 1 that they made it such as the fact that only his armor was like very metallic and shiny? They wanted to showcase that type of technology that they can create reflective or like realistic settings of background without like the fact of using green screens. That was like the biggest leap in terms of technology for filmmaking. That was what it was demonstrating. And the other things too that like, yeah, like filming overall has improved, but I think the general lack of like sensibility of like trying to strive for quality has dropped a lot. Like what you said, because of
I'm
deadlines.
sure. I'm sure there's a strive for quality. It's just they have to sacrifice it because there's no time.
Mm-hmm. And nowadays too, it's like I'm also like in the agreement, and like this is also something that like whatever we say also applies to games as well, right? Because at 1.2, do you think like this is going to be me asking comparison to game side? Do you think right now like having a game being developed for so long would result in a good quality game?
Not necessarily.
Want to repeat that? I missed it.
Dang it. Would in this case having a game being in the development for so long would result a great quality game in the end?
No. Do you know what Final Fantasy 15 is?
Hey man.
Not saying it's a terrible game, but it's definitely sure as hell not as good. As good as it can be compared to how much time it was given.
Yeah. Look, Tetsuya Nomura had a vision. The vision was not tampered. The vision was not tempered. So there was a lot of like this could definitely be something that like a lot of times too. I think a lot of filming right now, scope creep becomes like a number one factor of like why a lot of films, a lot of TV shows actually look so bad on screen. And it's because the fact that like as the budget keeps increasing too, the directors and the producers have to really try to figure out how to maximize like everything they do with the budget they have. And I think why
don't they just do what they need to do instead of maximizing the budget? I mean, they're still given they're not giving more time with like more budget. So why are they trying to?
I don't know, because like I don't think like.
Great question. Maybe moving on.
No, hold on. Because I think in general too, is like they probably did want to just work with what they currently have too. But it doesn't help the fact too that there's like you see the big number budget like looming over you, and you do everything you can to make sure that the money is being used worthwhile. And I will say, like, people that work under those types of pressure too, you're bound to make a lot of mistakes and try to cut a lot of corners just to say that, like, oh fuck, we gotta go through all of this. Oh, there's like we can just dedicate so much money on this too, but we don't have enough time to do this. So just here's the money, just do the best you can with it or head fast as you can with it.
Yeah, I mean, like they're giving more money, but they're not giving more time, so it doesn't really. I mean, nothing is. I don't see that it's going to be any better, because
Mhm.
you're not. Because once you hire more people, or once you like hire more companies to do more things, it takes more time to put it all together.
Yeah.
But you're not given that time to put it together.
Yeah, because like if you watch any of the like any Marvel films, like if you want to watch the post credit scene, I feel like the post credit scene culture is like a terrible thing. The trend that a lot of the movies are trying to do. But if you see like in the post credit scene, you could definitely see like how many studios were involved in this project, and it's a lot, and it's like scary amount as well. As like holy shit. I felt like that should have been. I felt like that should have been a sign for us as moviegoers that this was gonna something that we were bound to like probably predict, such as the fact that like, do you think with like so many hands that are involved in this project too, that it would just dilute the quality of the final product? Because there's something that like Christopher Nolan, the one that is in charge and directed it, like Oppenheimer, he makes a profound point of like, in the sense that like he is against VFX by any metric whatsoever. Insane individual, but he does his best to like actually try to make the most impactful scene with, in this case, a limited budget that he himself set in his own mind, just because of the fact that like, again, it's a budget, you have to learn to work with it, but you also have to figure out the most creative, inventive way to like composite your shots to the way how you want the viewers to experience it. So Christopher Nolan is a batshit insane director. I would love
He
to
does
see
it.
like a
He does it
Mhm.
correctly. I mean, like, you should definitely. They shouldn't be giving movies like this big ass budget.
Mhm.
There's no need because all they'll do is either pocket a lot of it or they're just gonna be wasteful with it, which is
Yeah.
usually what happens. They'll just be very wasteful with it one way or another.
Yeah.
I think a lot of actors are being like overpaid. I'm gonna be completely honest, and that's what
Oh yeah.
really also drives up these budgets.
Oh
It
yeah.
drives up these
No.
costs.
Oh yeah. No. There was even a point too that Robert Downey Jr. didn't want to actually participate in any more Marvel projects unless they actually like gave the other actors either increase their like contracts cost, or they like had to figure out some creative way about it. But obviously I don't know what ended up happening in the end too. There's a lot of things that was happening throughout the whole MCU stuff, because at the end of the day, at did I say gay? Oh shit.
Yes.
At the
Well,
end,
we'll
you're
ignore
gay.
that. Yes, it's okay. Go ahead.
Oops. At the end of the day too, I will say too that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like all the Avengers, ended at Endgame. There is no other Marvel titles to do outside of right now. They're just doing like small minor projects now, here and there.
Mhm.
In my eyes, the MCU completely stopped and never made another movie after Endgame.
Yeah. And that is something that like it is a little bit depressing for a lot of people to hear, but obviously too, that was it. This was the point of like the whole MCU's existence. Now they're just doing everything they can to like try to justify their existence to keep on going. But
Like, I don't even think they know what they want the next big threat to be.
yeah. So outside of that too, let's try to circle back with like everything that we said about like the current state of Hollywood with like the streaming stuff too. What do you guys think is like a hot or like a prediction take that you think that both Hollywood or the streaming service is going to take in the next 5 years?
It's still gonna be
That's
around.
hard to say. I think
That's all I can tell you. That's all I can
yeah,
tell
they're
you.
gonna 5 years in my eyes is a little short. I'm sure
Mhm.
they're gonna still be as wasteful as they are now. I'm sure
All
they're
right.
just gonna try to come up with some big name title that they're gonna put on their site to try to get more viewers. I think as of right now, next 5 years, they're still gonna go the same route that they are. I
Mhm.
don't see a drastic change happening.
Right. You or Michael and Loy, what do you think?
I just said, I'm sure they're still gonna be around. They're gonna be doing the same crap.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's just inevitable.
yeah. But in this case, based on like a lot of recent news too, there are in this case a lot of times like a lot of studios are like cutting back on a lot of projects, or in this case, they are just like canceling a lot of projects now. But the budget spending is still up there too, because half the time, yeah, the amount of budget that for Hollywood, like the more budget that or the more money that you put into a project, a movie, the more you get back. But I think a lot of people start to see too that like at some point that budget starts to have depreciating returns.
Yeah,
Diminishing returns.
Like it,
depreciative.
yeah,
You said it
it's
right.
like yeah, so depreciative returns. In this case too, like they're not gonna get any more. Like here's the thing, they're not gonna get any more money. They're not gonna make any more money the more money that they're gonna spend in the project, just because again, there's only a select amount of people on this earth here. The line
Correct. I
can't go
mean,
up
yes,
forever.
yes, correct. I mean, money can only take you so far. Is really,
Yeah,
I guess, what you're trying to get at, which is true.
yeah.
I mean, y- there's only a certain. I think there's only a certain amount of money that can be put into a project with the given amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So time and money are kind of correlated.
Yeah.
So if you give more money with the same amount of time, you're gonna get a diminishing return, which is a bad result,
Yeah.
a bad movie. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hmm?
God.
I'm
Let's just
not
say
repeating.
yeah, I get what you mean too. And it's like in some ways too, I'm gonna like even say too, like look at the Fast and the Furious saga. Like holy fuck. I feel like
Bro,
I feel like there are movies being made, like there's movies being made of that franchise like every year, I feel like. But obviously that's not the case, but it's a lot
they all been
more.
bad.
Yeah. After Fast, what, 7 or 6?
I feel like it's earlier than that.
Mm. Tokyo Drift. You're right.
When it became way more action than anything, I'm like, bro, what is this? What am I
Yeah.
watching?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
dude.
when it became tolerable to watch. No kidding.
What the fuck, Michael? But I do want to at least like think or be hopeful at least right now too that like even though there is like the case too that like a lot of like movies and our favorite TV shows are like fucking eating slop at this point too, there have been like the diamond in the rough like films and TV shows that have come like above the occasion where people are like, yes, we love this, make more of this please, like not in this case similar to that but with the same principles and development like process as this.
Yeah, name one.
Homeland. There was like not Homelander. Fuck, I'm thinking not The Boys
I was
here.
about to say, bro.
Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper was an amazing like superhero TV show with John Cena. Who knew that he's actually pretty decent at acting?
Dun, 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 dun. That's good.
But yeah, if you haven't really watched Peacekeeper, it is a DC TV show that features a vigilante anti-hero called Peacekeeper. Go figure. And it's a best way to describe the character is that he comes off as like an asshole that he thinks that he is a hero, but all of his actions says otherwise. Like he is very much okay of just shooting people in the face if he has to. And he think that's what
Nice.
a real hero does.
That is what a real hero does.
Yeah.
To
And
do what needs to be done. Okay.
minus the other big plot in the whole film where his dad is actually a fucking racist. And by that I mean a white supremacist.
Big old racist dude.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bagond.
But the thing about like the film itself too is that like it is actually a really well shot movie, like both in terms of like how the scenes are laid out and the way how a lot of visual effects look too. None of it actually looks like terrible. It's also because of the fact that a lot of times all the shots look good because they shot in Seattle. Seattle is always cloudy, so you're gonna have that consistent lighting throughout your entire scenes. I think that's what happened with Twilight too, actually. Like, if everybody remembers how fucking moody as hell that movie was. Sorry, I had to take a sip. But there's also films like another film, the film that, since we're on the topic of like superhero movies, there are two films I want to say, at least as of lately. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was by far a really good movie on its own, just in terms of like visual effects, and also again the story, in this case Rocket Raccoon being like the most tragic story that nobody expected to experience. And there's also my personal favorite, which is Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
Now
It's a good one.
I will even state otherwise too, that I would like to even say too that the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse like trilogy, which is pretty much what it's going to be, is in my eyes what actual filmmaking should be, both in terms of writing, composition, music score, dialogue, and just editing in general. This isn't even about like how intricate the animation is. The animation plays a part of it, but it doesn't make, in this case, the entirety of like what makes these movies good. It helps tell the story is the thing here. That's why they're using the animation. And that's what a lot of people tend to like forget about too, is that like I think what people really like is, in this case, films that don't treat you like dumbasses. Or in this case, films that don't treat their audiences like they're dumbasses. Because I watched a recent like video that talked about like what a lot of times when people were asked otherwise, like what was the music scores that you know from any franchise, people could list off the Indiana Jones, the Star Wars, James Bond, hell, oh hold on, oh shit, I had to burp a little bit, hell, even the Mission Impossible films too. But nobody could ever really name a soundtrack score that comes from the Marvel films outside of one, and it's a Spider-Man film.
I'm one I like is the one whenever Bucky is it's during Civil War,
Yeah,
and Bucky has escaped, and then the Captain America holds back the helicopter with his one big gigantic bulky arm, and the
Yeah.
music score is just going crazy. I remember
Yeah.
that one.
yeah. But out of the rest of those too, not a lot of people could actually like name like what the symphony or the melody sounds like for a lot of the other films outside of a Spider-Man film. I will keep defending this too because there's an actually good reason for that. If anything, Lloyd just stated the key notes that everybody remembers. In all the Spider-Man themes out there, there have always been those select few key notes that every composition, every music composer only uses. That way people can understand and immediately recognize, oh shit, that's a Spider-Man theme.
Definitely.
In this case, this is going to go into the music theory aspect that I don't think I have time to really explain because that's like its own can of worms.
Well,
of
they do
what
have it.
music
It's for
theories.
Captain America. It's dun dun da da dun dun da da dun dun da da dun dun.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like throughout watching the movies, you don't ever hear that outside of like either in the beginning or in the end of the film. Even in like in Captain America Winter Soldier 2, where he goes through the museum, he actually has one of the most beautiful soundtracks of it being played, but it gets blurred out or get blocked out because there's a narrator that is already retelling like the story of Captain America again, because Winter Soldier is just the sequel of Captain America, the First Avenger. And it's just like you could get rid of the narrator, just have Steve Rogers just walk through the museum hall of like people just looking at all of the relics of the past of like World War II or like the heroics of Captain America. Because
Yeah, but then that's
visually
more
speaking,
time, and they don't have time for that.
no, it's not even more time. You can literally just remove the audio. You just remove the audio and it still paints the same picture. Everybody knows the story of Steve Rogers. You just need to like get rid of like a lot of stuff that's already in the scene. Because I think the other problem too is like I think there's a reason why the with the increasing budgets, they're using that as like a way to like safety net. Then they're putting a lot of things in a scene to make it feel safer for them. When in reality, it just makes the scene look low quality in the end. Like there's a saying too, less is more.
Mm,
Like you need to like treat
ah,
this is like at least my hot take, or at least not even a hot take. I think this is just like a generalized take about it too. Movies are in this case moving picture stories. Treat it as such. Tell your story in the scene that you have. Show things that are on the screen or what is off the screen. Edgar Wright is a genius when it comes to that too, especially when he does like a lot of his comedies based around like things that are happening off screen, like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Low budget film,
um,
but it's an amazing fucking movie, a comedy flick. Fuck, I
Maybe.
forgot Chris Evans was in there too. Shit.
Really?
Yeah, he was. He was a skater kid. He was a skater guy.
Ah, I see. Interesting.
Yeah, so that was the wild fun fact here too. Chris Evans was also in Scott Pilgrim versus the World as one of the ex-boyfriends. But albeit, this is something that like I don't think in general too, that like there's going to be a lot of bad quality movies coming out, especially for those that have like the most increased budgets. But I think there will always be like those outliers that will definitely be able to like rise above the piles of shit, which is not really a high bar to pass, anyways. But you know, at least we get those. Like in this case, all the Dune movies. I still need to watch Dune Part 2. Fuck.
same. I haven't watched it yet.
Goddamn. Squad watch party to make a
Squad
movie
watch.
review. Yeah. So hot or trash watch party of like watching the Dune movies and actually making a movie review about it. But I'll say, oh my god, there's so much that I really want to say too. Let's just go with the fact that why do I think the Spider-Man films are like, in my opinion, like the best form of like what it means for filmmaking here. Even though I kind of went glossary over it too. In general too, Spider-Man is in this case another version of the simple storytelling called a hero's journey, which is effectively the hero goes through in this case he answers a calling that takes him out of from his normal world into the world that he is now trying to like, oh shit, I gotta fix this problem now. He has a mentor figure that helps him through the ropes, goes through a climactic figure. The hero has his downfall, climbs back up again to meet the challenge once more, beats the challenge, and then comes back to the original world. The
Yeah,
Spider-Man
Lord of the
story,
Rings.
yeah, heads worthwhile Lord of the Rings. I don't think there will be any other movie that actually could match what Lord of the Rings does. I'm looking at you,
Mhm.
Rings of Power.
Don't look at it.
You're right. But I'll be on it. Albeit, let me get back on topic here. I like in this case the Spider-Man story with the fact that even though a lot of people said that like for Stan Lee's vision of it, anybody can wear the Spider-Man mask. Therefore, throughout the entirety of the Spider-Verse as well, you have so many different like versions of Spider-Man out there, and they're all just like different forms of it. But then there comes in this case a question of like what makes you Spider-Man? In this case, what is the meaning of what it means to be Spider-Man? Which, if anything, I think a lot of times Into the Spider-Verse is something that it is a question of, in this case, both to the old fans and the new fans of like, what do you think what being Spider-Man means? This is more or less going into my own separate small review of it too. But in Beyond the Spider-Verse, there are two different parties here. You have Miles Morales and Miguel O'Hara. Miguel O'Hara represents in this case the traditional like origins of a Spider-Man, such as the fact that he uses the death of like a loved one as a reason to fuel himself to become Spider-Man. A lot of people say like nowadays that like that sounds like a really bad mental health kind of way of like trying to keep moving forward using someone else's death to keep doing something like this, and in some cases they become reckless as well. Versus Miles Morales, he has his own like family figure death as well too. But the last message, instead of the phrase "with great power comes with great responsibility," the words that is said to Miles that was more profound than anything else is "keep moving forward."
No.
I
No,
don't
it
know. I
wasn't.
can't fact check you on that. So
No,
No,
it did.
I just mean that doesn't sound nearly as powerful. I'm sorry.
It does. At first, it doesn't too, but it is definitely something that is different for Miles, where he's going to be the representative of like a new wave of like thinking of for Spider-Man. Like beforehand, like Peter Parker is effectively the tragic hero that can never succeed. In this case, Peter Parker can never have a good ending, no matter what, and it's sad.
The tragedy.
Yeah, like in this
Peter
case,
Parker.
yeah, like Peter Parker losing in this case his first loved one, which is like Gwen Stacy. And even with like his current like love interest with Mary Jane, even into the Spider-Verse, it even showcases that yeah, Peter B. Parker, yeah, we kind of had a we broke up a while back. Just because she mentioned about marriage and I couldn't deal with that right now because I'm currently Spider-Man, and then everything just went a downward spiral. So, and it's like a lot of these stories too that like even a lot of comic fans, we were just like, we're kind of tired of seeing like Peter Parker just being like the most saddest human being ever. And Miles Morales is something that's like a refreshing take in this case of like, don't let in this case like Uncle Ben's death like emblemize your own like purpose that you have to keep up like the greatest responsibility no matter what too. And if anything, there's like you can't have it all, right? You have to do what you can do right now. Whereas with Miles Morales' character, he wants to do it all, and he can do it all. So there's like the message with that as well. Like I said, I love this as a actual philosophical point of like films as well too when it comes to like redefining the hero's journey, because it's effectively two sides of the same story, just different perspectives. And therefore, and it's also hella relatable for a lot of people, especially those that come from like specific backgrounds, not directly, but people can relate to like the struggles of the story as well. I think that's what a lot of people or a lot of films don't always get otherwise too, is that they're trying to make these characters relatable, but in reality it's just like comes off like either in bad taste or it just ends up becoming more racist.
Sounds normal to me.
Yep. I can't name like a couple that has done that because there have been like quite frankly a lot more examples of that in like a lot of Disney movies. But to say the very least too, that is at least my quick summary and like my at least review about what I love about the Spider-Verse in the Spider-Man series too. It's something that engages me in the terms of visual aspects, how a lot of times they don't directly tell you what's happening to, and you could kind of pick it up just from whatever like scene that you're looking at. Like I said, don't over explain your movie. Let, in this case, your scenes explain it for you. You just have to trust that audience to know what they're looking at.
But they don't.
True, but
I don't think it's they don't. I think they probably misunderstand it and take things out of proportion.
yeah, definitely they do. But that's something that like something that's also our responsibility, being able to have these types of conversations to begin with. Like converse with people that do watch the movie, and if they have different opinions over what they saw versus what you saw, that's great. Anyways, you're both watching a film, a piece of entertainment in the end. That is a job that a lot of film directors, in the end, they need to cater to that experience. And that's what a lot of these times do, that people don't feel like a lot of these films are made for them because none of these films are fun to watch anymore. Therefore, resulting in cancellations of other subscriptions. But I feel like I kind of rambled and ranted a little bit on that regard, especially with the Spider-Man film. But again, I'm using this as an excuse to tell people why I love the Spider-Man films. All right, fuck y'all.
Hey, I was fine listening to you.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I wasn't.
Like in this case, for the three of you, what was in this case like? In your opinion, in this case your top the favorite film that you don't either that you don't think that anyone could replicate, or you would wish that movies like this would be made more often?
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, there. Well,
I
we
don't
just
know,
answered.
honestly.
I don't know.
All right.
The
Well,
one I can think off the top of my head is Lord of the Rings. That is.
yeah. I do wish like in this case like stories or films like that be made more.
And I
But-
don't know if it's just because, like, I don't like because I watch movies, but I don't watch a tremendous amount. But I
Oh.
don't know if it like is it bad that like that is it. That's like the movie I really love, and that it was made so long ago, and that not a movie in the past 20 years has topped it.
No, I mean you're still justified for that as well too, because again, Lord of the Rings is like critically acclaimed film like across the world. So if anything, a lot of times again, people would love to see another film like Lord of the Rings. Hell, that's what every other country loves to see a lot of times from Western films, is the fact that they had like the ability to make that type of trilogy series. They want
Yeah,
to
but we
see
just
those types of film again.
we make the same kind of film now, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Hopefully that's what Dune is kind of achieving here too, but we'll honestly see. There's only 2 films about that, but I think for sure the Spider-Man movies too have been very successful globally. Hell, fucking Japan, even like based in this case, the Super Sentai Rangers or the Power Rangers stuff in Japan, based off of Spider-Man. And then afterwards, Kamen Rider, which is another just form of like the Power Ranger trope, but in this case, emulating what Americans were doing about superhero, emulating what the Americans were doing with superheroes. That's what Kamen Riders are. They're just Japanese like superhero versions. So yeah, there's a lot of things that, at least for the most part, I think there's a lot of things that the Western and like America has done when it comes to making entertainment that influences a lot of people around the world. And I think that's something that like we should try to keep striving for that. But it's obvious too, we are not having like the best of times right now.
No, sir, we are not.
Strike, strike, strike.
Strike.
We want better
Strike,
movies.
Yeah. Let's. There's also still that rumor too, where there's going to be another Writers Guild strike because obviously the previous, because the previous offer that they got from like the Hollywood execs too were obviously a shitty deal to begin with. They shouldn't have accepted regardless, but they did anyways. Because half the
maybe
time,
when they start making better movies, then they can go on strike.
yeah. But I'm only surprised. I'm only like saddened about the fact too, like why haven't like the VFX industries like participated in a lot of strikes more often? Just because again, the VFX industry is by far in this case the most abused industry, and when it comes to entertainment, hell,
Oh, man.
a lot of projects they have to work on, and a lot of them are like under like tight schedules too, and they don't get paid on time, which also causes so much burnout.
Yeah, no, that sounds horrible. Not getting paid on time, like I'd be so frustrated.
Yeah,
If my work just couldn't pay me, I was like, huh?
yeah. Like your work just couldn't pay you, and people are trashing the movie that you worked on because you were given such unreasonable expectations or working conditions, and then it's just like eats away at you after project after project.
Screw them. They don't know what I've been through.
I feel that.
Facts,
Yeah.
but they don't care. Also.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah.
we're in this consistent, perpetual, I don't care what they think.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So at least at some point, someone has to care at least, but
Won't be me.
obviously.
No.
But obviously for like the way how it should be, at least too, we in this case are only our only responsibility is that we just support the movies that we love watching more of. And that is, in this case, we want another Baywatch film.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, you want to look at titties or something?
No, I like to look at thick ass men.
Yeah, they're titties.
Exactly.
Big old
Little man
pectoral
titties.
muscles.
Hell yeah, baby. but
Boom, 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 boom.
I mean, it's gonna be like a really interesting like next 5 years. See what's gonna happen to, especially we're already going through like we're already into halfway into this year, right? And it's still not looking that great.
It's crazy
But-
to think we're already more than halfway through this year.
Yeah,
Oh my God, it's July.
yeah. I don't want to think about it either, guys.
Man,
But-
It's actually pretty crazy.
getting old.
Hey, we're only like pushing 30 here.
Holy cow, bitch,
Maybe that's you.
Hey,
yeah, Grandpa. I'm
Oh,
saying.
hey, Grandpa,
Man,
Grandpa.
man,
Oh
shut the
man,
fuck
oh
up.
man.
If I keep
Yeah.
calling you old, it makes me younger. So
You
Correct.
bitch. But-
You are the oldest out of the four.
Oh, god damn it. And
Yeah,
Lloyd
old
being the
man, old man.
youngest. God damn it.
Yeah, small boy, small boy.
I am small boy, small boy.
Oh man. But overall, I think right now we're just gonna have to just at this point enjoy the ride while we can.
what
Just 'cause-
ride are we
What,
enjoying?
yeah, what ride, bro?
Yeah, what are we enjoying?
Don't worry.
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
never
know what
mind
you're
then. Seems like
talking about.
This seems like a shitty roller coaster to me.
Yeah, man.
All right, sorry.
It's like the
You
roller
don't
coaster
see
wasn't finished.
sorry, you don't see my air quotes when I do this. I put in air quotations around enjoying here. It's just gonna be a ride.
You should have a button that you can press that makes your character put up air quotes so that we know when you're quoting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll think about that. Probably not.
I'll think about not doing that.
Yeah,
That boy won't
exactly.
do anything.
You're right.
He's just like those people in the movie industry.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. This shit is hard. I'm not used to this type of shit. I would rather hire someone else that knows how to do this for me.
Good, and then give him a deadline, and then give him an unreasonable deadline.
Hell yeah. I'm a perpetuate problems.
I want it right now.
Let's go.
Oh man. But overall, I'm just gonna be hopeful for this time around too, just because like there are actually decent movie projects that are coming around the corner. Hell, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse is actually coming pretty soon than I hope, a lot sooner than I thought it would be. Probably somewhere by the end of like Q3 or 4. That's when they're about to drop it. So can't wait for that movie.
Well, see, it got popular, so now the next release of it's going to be bad.
Yeah, well.
Yep.
Don't shame me. We were left on a to be continued in the second film. If it does truly bad, then we're definitely gonna riot.
Oh.
So, whichever the case may be, do y'all have any closing statements for our audience?
Nope.
Yeah,
Just that I
creative
love
industry. Creative industry's weird, guys. I don't know, man. Movies, games are all the same.
What do
Yeah.
you guys think about the creative industry out there? Please,
Yeah.
What do you
like,
mean by
put
that?
it down in the comments. And like
But,
the video. I want to see that the rainbow pops up on our like button. We go like, hit that like
subscribe.
button.
Subscribe, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually the subscribe.
Subscribe.
No, it
Yeah,
happens with the like button
subscribe.
too. I saw someone say hit that like button, and then all of a sudden it lit up, and I was like, they do it there
Well,
too.
guess what? I don't believe you.
Okay.
Same.
We'll watch this video after it's posted.
Yeah. But anyways, for all the people out there, if you're in this case at all worried about like what should you like support to, just support whatever you feel like at this point. Watch movies to enjoy it. Don't
Unless it's bad, then don't support it, please. Please, for the rest of
Yeah.
us, don't support
like
it.
here's the thing though. You could definitely tell in this case that the movie is bad just by watching the trailers. That's all. That's what trailers are meant for anyways.
They make the trailer super good.
They
Well
almost
then.
never do.
Yeah,
They always make the trailers where they reveal like the entire plot, and then they go ahead and show you like bits and pieces of the ending, but you don't realize it until you're watching the movie, and you just realize, oh, that was in the trailer, the end of the movie.
yeah.
They just give you the entire movie in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So, either way, just do your best judgment on that. If you need to watch a lot of reviews that talk about the film, I would recommend a channel like Chris Stuckman, who does like a really level-headed take with a lot of films, as unbiased as he could possibly be. Where in this case, if he doesn't say anything or if he does have a bias, he will at least state it. So, outside of that, I got nothing more. Vote with your wallets, whichever you want to do.
The
Everybody
truest
has-
yet hardest thing to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Clearly.
yeah. So, thank you all for tuning in for tonight of me rambling about the Spider-Man film. Oh my god!
Hey,
I want to
we
be.
always got
I want to replace our avatars too with like the poorly drawn Spider-Man that's definitely drawn on MS Paint.
Ugh, I could take care of that for you. No.
Oh man,
You give me
So-
glasses.
definitely.
Spider Man with glasses.
Yeah. So thank you all.
Wait, I
again
just
for tuning-
realized.
What's that?
Why is my?
I didn't.
You probably said this, but why is my sprite so much like smaller? Like I literally am like reduced size
You're not.
overall.
If anything, you're just positioned slowly. Like your body is already at the edge.
Slowly?
Slowly.
What does that
Your
mean?
Position
Slowly?
slowly.
You're
bro.
positioned slow. What does that mean?
Don't worry
You
about it.
Slow, bro. You slow.
Yeah, don't worry about
he
it.
did so good. He did so
Anyways.
good not to insult Michael the whole podcast. Now he just insulted him.
Man,
Yeah,
he
well,
reduced
yeah.
my. Well, no, he did insult me the entire time. He reduced my size. Look at me.
Now who's a small boy? Anyways,
Ooh.
thank you everybody for tuning in for tonight's podcast of the Hotter Trash Boys. Here,
Yes, sir.
tune in next week.
Night.
Night. Tease.